Hey everybody, it's Alex, and this is just a little preliminary intro tutorial to Adobe Photoshop. This is as early as it gets. This is for my new students and complete novices when it comes to Photoshop. So if you've never touched Photoshop before, this is really just a little practice, get your feet wet kind of exercise. Okay, so we're going to start by doing a couple things here. First of all, if you've never launched Photoshop before, this is how we're going to do it. So I'm on a Mac, so it might be a little different, of course, if you're on a PC, but generally you're going to go to your applications folder. So hopefully by now you've installed Photoshop on your system, and you can navigate to your applications folder and find Photoshop. And I like to actually eventually put it, so yeah, it's right there, Photoshop. The one I'm using is 2019. 2020 might be the one you're using, or even 2021 is about to come out pretty soon. But either way, I like to actually bring it down to my dock down here, so it's just permanently down here. You can just drag it down. See, I'm going to put it, well, wherever you want to put it. I guess I could put it right next to Premiere there. Whoops, it didn't take it. There you go. Sometimes it takes 2 attempts. So I like to put it down here in our dock, but you can always just double click it, and then it will open. And some, okay, so it's the big one that we use for what we call raster graphics. Okay, graphics that are made of pixels. Just bringing up my brightness a little bit there. So basically, yeah, so I've opened Adobe Photoshop here. I got some other projects from students and other people. And so you might eventually start to see previous projects. Don't be intimidated. This is really what you're supposed to see when you first start it up. You'll see there's a couple tabs over here, create new. That's if you wanted to make a new project, or open if you wanted to open one. Okay, now in our case, we're actually going to be using some assets that I have you download. So you can either go to my curriculum website or navigate to Schoology, go to the fundamentals class, and you should be able to navigate to the resources, right? So here we go. We're going down to, oh, actually I have tabs at the top here now, so we can go to level 1, and we are going down to what would be, well, I'm making it right now, but eventually embedded here would be the tutorial you're watching and the resource files. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you what I actually did. I downloaded a couple files over here. Okay, these are the ones you're going to download, and they're under Photoshop Practice. Okay. So there's this nice little image of kind of the meadow and the sunset, like a nice landscape. We have this silhouette of a bird, okay? And then we have this kind of trendy barn, okay? And really I'm just keeping it simple for now. 3 images that we're going to work with just to get your feet wet in Photoshop, okay? Because it's the first time. So this is what we're going to do just to kind of keep things simple here. Okay, so let's go back to, whoops. I kind of moved, you can grab the top there as you notice. Okay, see the big open button there? Okay, you can also go to File, Open, either one's fine. I'm going to go ahead and click Open. Okay, and now if you've downloaded those files, you should navigate to wherever you have saved them. Hopefully you have a place you're saving your projects on your computer. For now, I just put these on the desktop. So I'm going to go to Photoshop Practice, and the one I want to open is that nice, beautiful meadow landscape. So I'm going to click Open. Okay. And here we go. Now I have a lot of other stuff open. If this happens to you, by the way, usually this is only if you've been using Photoshop previously, but a lot of this stuff we're not going to need right now. So I'm actually going to close most of it. I just want to unnest, as we say, the layers panel, because that will be important. Okay, so any of this other stuff, you can always hit the little X like that in the corner to get rid of it. Okay, so we have this nice landscape image here. Okay, let's just talk a little bit about the layout, though, of Photoshop itself. So you should see in the corner way over here, okay, the Tools panel. I'm going to go to the top tool here, the Move tool. So all your tools are here. And based on the tool you're on, you'll see it changes the Control panel. See? As I click on different tools, the Control panel here will change. Again, don't be intimidated. A lot of the stuff we're going to go through as we get through the projects gradually. And then at the top here are the drop-downs, the drop-down menus. So that will give you other options as well, such as Save or Save As. Okay. The layers panel is going to be one of the most important panels. This is basically the essence of Photoshop. Photoshop is a layer-based program. We mentioned it's a primarily raster-based program, works with what we call raster graphics that are made of pixels that you captured when you took a photo with a digital camera or something you downloaded online. But layers is very important too, because layers are basically stacks of those images that you're going to put together to make designs. So first thing I want to do is I want to make this a little bigger, not actually bigger in terms of how big the image is, just kind of for visual purposes. So you could go to the little magnifying glass if you want here and click to make it bigger, or I just like to do Command plus or Command minus, either one. Command as in on your keyboard and the plus sign, Command minus as well on your keyboard. If it's on a PC, it would be Control plus, Control minus. You can also do Command 0 if you want it to actually fill the page. Okay, I'm going to go Command minus 1 though. I want it to be a little smaller. I like to see the edges, the boundaries, so to speak. Okay, so I'm going to use this as basically my background. So this image itself is going to become my Photoshop file. As you can see in my layers panel, I already have one layer background. By the way, if you don't see layers, let's just say it was missing. No problem. We just go up to Window and then go to Layers, and it will bring it up for you. Okay, so there's layers. If you run into any problems, by the way, if you're in my course, you can, of course, message me, and I can walk you through this. This is really just to get you, step by step through the basics of how to set up a project, how to do a little bit in Photoshop. Then we're going to get into some more, the nuts and bolts, so to speak, in later assignments. So this is just a practice to get your feet wet. We got one layer here. You can see it's called background. It's locked by default. That's actually okay in this case. Just so you know, we could unlock it, but I'm not really going to do anything to this layer. This is going to be the background that I want anyway, so I'm just going to leave it as is. Right now, as you can see up here, though, it says Beautiful Meadow Landscape Sunset JPG. Okay, it's a JPEG. JPEG is a type of image format. What I want this to become is a Photoshop file, because I want it to have layers that I could save and I can edit and come back to later. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to File, and I'm going to do Save As. File, Save As. So go ahead, take a moment. You can hit the pause button if you need to. And then I'm going to go down to see where it says Format, and it's already on JPEG. I'm going to change that, click that little drop down, and go up to Photoshop. So if you come up to the top here, to scroll over a little bit, you'll see the file extension changed from .jpg to .psd. It's now a Photoshop document. Okay, and I'm still going to save it in that Photoshop practice folder. That's fine. Leave it the same name, and then click Save. So I clicked Save, and up here you will see the change reflected, the .psd. It is now a Photoshop file. Okay, so if you go back to that folder, you'll actually see there's two of them that have similar names. If I were to look at them, they look like there's no difference, but one is the original JPEG, one is the Photoshop file that I can start to stack layers on top of and save as a Photoshop file. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to bring in some other images, some of those other ones that we had there. So I'm going to go ahead and do File, and I'm going to go to Open. File, Open. And let's go ahead to the bird. Click on the bird flying silhouette JPG. You click Open, and here it is. Now notice what happened. It replaced what was on my screen. Let me go to the Move tool, by the way, just so I'm not on the magnifying glass. But anyway, basically what happened was this one is still there. The original Meadow is still there. It's just in a different tab. So you notice if I click on the name up here, the tab, it lets me jump between the two of them. I actually have two tabs. And if I were to hit this little X button, I'd actually close that bird one. I could even close the original Photoshop file if I want, but I don't want to do that. So I'm actually going to go to Open Recent, a little shortcut here, and I'm going to open the bird once again. Okay, so the bird is back open, okay, and I have two of them there. Now, what do I do if I want to get the bird into this layer here? Well, the simplest thing to do is just to drag it in there. So if I go up to my drop downs and I go to Window and I go to Arrange, it's the first one down, and then just go over here. You see there's a couple different options here. Some of them are grayed out because it depends on how many images you have, queued up at the moment. And I can do one of these two up horizontal or two up vertical. Either one's fine. I'm going to do two up vertical. And notice it puts side by side those two images. Then I go to the very top tool here. We're only going to really use these first kind of like 3 or 4, tools, the basic tools for this exercise. I'm going to click on the Move tool. It was already selected, so it was no big deal. And then basically what I do is here I click on the bird, click down, hold the click down. You really got to hold it down. Drag, drag, drag. Don't let go of the click. And go, bam, let go. And notice what I did. I dragged it over here. So now the bird's over here on top of the meadow. And notice I have a layer 1 on top of my background. It's actually my second layer, but since this one is considered background, they call this layer 1. And then what I can do is hit the little X. We don't need the original bird now because I have it over here. So very good. Okay, let's do another file, open, repeat the process, file, open. And now we want to bring in it's called Waybridge. Basically, it's the image of the barn. So we go ahead on that Waybridge 2017 image, click open, and there it is. Same process. I'm going to do the window, arrange, 2 up vertical, hold, make sure you're on the Move tool, hold the click, drag over, and just drop that barn right there. Then I'm going to close this one, and notice I now have a second layer on top of layer 1. So I have 3 layers in total. And notice whichever layer I'm on is the layer I'm moving. If I'm on layer 2 selected, I move layer 2. Select layer 1, I move layer 1. It's also a stacking order. If I were to move layer 1 up, just drag that actual, see I'm actually holding the click and dragging up, and then see the little hand there, the little blue line above layer 2, let go. I actually dragged layer 1 on top of layer 2. And now visually it's on top of layer 2 in my layout. So you can change the order of what's on top that way, okay? There's also, notice these little eye icons. If I click those, it hides layers. So notice the barn goes and appears based on if it's visible or not, the eye. I can hide the bird. I can even hide the background, and all I'm left with is the checkerboard. Checkerboard is basically when nothing's visible, okay? So the reason you might want to do that is because you may want to work with just one particular layer. So in this case, I want to work with layer 1, okay? Because what I want to do is I want to make this bird really small because it's going to go in the background of that meadow. If you can picture it kind of flying in the sky back there. I made it silhouetted because it's kind of like, backlit by the sun. So that's why I chose a silhouetted bird image. So it's too big though. See how big it is? So we got to shrink this down. So what we're going to use is the transform tool. Okay, so follow with me. Make sure layer 1 is selected, the bird layer. And I'm going to go to edit, transform, and then we're going to go to scale. Okay, scale. And then what you can do, this depends on the version of Photoshop you're in. In the version I'm in, you don't have to hold shift anymore. You just drag the corner and it makes it the size you want. Earlier versions, you had to hold shift to constrain proportions, but you just drag it down to the size you want it to be. Okay, and then when you're done, you can either hit the check mark or you can hit return. Either one. If I hit the little no smoking sign thing, that would undo it and do nothing. We don't want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to hit the check mark and bring back the meadow, and now it's there. Unfortunately, it's still got that white edge, but we're going to get rid of that. Don't worry. Something else I wanted to mention, by the way, we've already resized it, but you want to keep tabs on your different layers, and the easiest way to do that is to give them names. Yes, if it's only a couple layers, maybe it's not a big deal, you can manage them. But imagine if you had 70, 80, 90 layers. It can be a lot of media management. In later tutorials, we'll talk about making folders. That's something you do right here, and you can put layers inside of folders. But to keep things simple for now, what I want to do is just put the little mouse, the finger, right on the name, layer 1 there, and then just double-click, and then I'm going to call it bird. Okay. Be careful. I'm going to name layer 2 now, the barn, but let's say I went over here too much. If you double click, it brings up this layer style panel, something we're going to use later. You're going to have to hit cancel if you do that, because we do not want to use that right now. What I want to do is just put the mouse right on the name there, layer 2, double click, and I'm going to call it barn. Oops, if I can spell it. Barn. Yes, barn. And background, if you want, same thing. I could actually, here you double click it and you name it here because it's a locked layer. I could call it meadow, or I could call it landscape if I want. By the way, in double clicking it took away the lock, but if I wanted, I could put the lock back, so no big deal. Again, things we'll get into a little later. Okay, so let's hide the barn for now. So I have the bird here, kind of near the sun. I want to get rid of that white edge. So I'm going to go over to my tools here. We were on the move tool. What I want you to do is drop down to this tool here. And basically, so right now it's on the quick selection. It's the fourth tool down. Some of these tools you have to hold the click. If you hold the click on them, it brings up a drop-down menu, and you can go to a subtool. So I want to go to a subtool called Magic Wand Tool. Okay, Magic Wand Tool. It's a subtool. It's not the quick selection. It's the Magic Wand. They're both similar, but the Magic Wand in this case would be a little bit simpler. Click on the white. See how it senses the edges? Because it's such a consistent color, that white, that it senses it in contrast to the black. Then all I have to do is hit the delete key on my keyboard. Delete. And look at that. Cuts out the bird. Now notice you still see what we call the ant trails, the marching ants, the selection edges, if you want to call it. How do we get rid of that? Either you can do select in the drop-down deselect, or you can do Command D on your Mac, Control D on your PC. And notice it makes this nice little kind of silhouetted bird. And he's kind of right, you know, you can put him where you want, but I'd put him like kind of, whoops. I realized it was on, that was on the Magic Wand tool, so now I got to go back to the Move tool. Might want to move him a little bit so he's overlapping. You can even use the little arrows if you want on your keyboard. Just a tiny bit, just kissing the edge of that sunset so he gets silhouetted. So great, I added my bird. Now I get my barn. So the barn is a little bit more of a complicated background here. Possibly if you're familiar with the quick selection and whatnot, it might work. But let's try a different tool for now. I want you to try the third tool down, the lasso. And by the same token, I want you to hold the click. I'm actually going to choose the actually not the polygonal. Oh yeah, no, let's do that. Polygonal. Yeah, the magnetic might work, but I think polygonal, just given the shape of this barn. Let's try the polygonal. It's the second choice. And basically what you can do with this, it's kind of like a connect the dots type thing. It'll let me kind of just connect the edges and make the selection manually. I'm going to probably trim little things like the not worry about, you know, the chimney or the chair and stuff like that. But if you wanted, you could include those. Just for simple sake, I'm going to hit the click right now, and notice I have this line here. And then I click again to put a point. Each time you click, it makes a point. Click again. If you mess up, it's okay. You can always just, you know, close it and just do a Command D to deselect. Ooh, probably have to wrap around this edge a little better here. Yeah, see, I didn't get that edge very good, but that's okay. I can clean it up a little later if I want. Come down here. I'm not going to include the side of the barn. I'm just kind of doing the barn itself. You know, it's going to be very small too, the sides I'm going to make it. So sometimes you can get away with not having it perfectly cut if it's on the smaller side. So, whoops, go like that. And then, yeah, once you reach the edge, it should make ant trails. If you can't quite catch the edge, just a little trick, if you hit Command click, it'll force the ant trails. Also, if you go off track and you're like, oh, I messed up, I have to restart, just Command click, it forces the ant trails to form, and just do a select deselect. Now at this point, if I were to hit delete, I would lose the barn, which is what I want, right? So let me go ahead. This is going to be a friend of yours, undo. You're going to use quite a bit. And instead of doing delete right off the bat, I'm going to go select inverse. Select inverse. That will choose everything but the barn. And then I hit delete. And then the barn's cut out. And then, yeah, there's a little bit of blue there. I'm going to do my select, deselect. You know, if you wanted to clean it up. As we get into later tutorials, I'm going to want you to use masking more. But for simplicity's sake now, we can go down to a tool called the eraser. Okay, eraser tool. And with that, you get this little circle. Okay, and then we're going to use our zoom in. Remember Command plus, Command plus, Command plus. And I'm going to go ahead and I can just use this little eraser, just click, and I can kind of erase the edge. Again, I'm not going to make it perfect for this, but you know, you can spend a little more time if you're really concerned about making it perfect. It's okay. There's a little erosion on the edge there. Also, by the way, just in the upper corner here, do you see this? Remember your control panels? There's a little control here for size and also how soft or hard the brush is, if you want to shrink it or make it bigger or smaller. Okay. Again, I'm not really going to make this perfect. It almost is okay if there's a little bit of this edge. It's like the glow of the sun behind it. You know what I mean? And I'm also shrinking it down. So then I'm going to do my Command minus. By the way, I'm just rolling around with my trackpad right now, or you can use a little ball in your mouse, whatever the case may be. Zoom out here. And what I want to do is I want to shrink down. Let me go back to the Move tool. The Move tool would be best for this. Okay, shrink down the barn. So with the barn selected, we're going to go back to Edit, Transform, Scale. And then I'm going to grab the corner, shrink it down. I'm going to put it on the hill, maybe here, maybe a little smaller. I don't know. It's kind of like, it's on the hill, although it's sort of right on a bend there. The foundation is on questionable ground, to say the least, but we won't ask questions about. Another thing that some people like to do, just to kind of sell it a little more, is you could go to the eraser, and I'm zooming in with Command Plus to make it look like it's kind of buried in the grass a little more. Just kind of like nibble away. Let me shrink it down up here a little bit. You can kind of make it look like it's sunk a little bit in to the grass, like it's actually in the hill. That might sell it a little more, that it's in the foundation of the hill there. I don't know if I did too much here. I'm kind of getting rid of the edge there. I don't know if that helps a little bit, just kind of sell it, like it looks like, especially when you zoom out. This corner might be a little quiet. I was trying to blend it more. Let's take a look though. Yeah, see now as you zoom out, it kind of looks more like, see how it looks like it's in the hill? So, we basically took an image and we added some interesting points of interest, right? We added a bird flying in the foreground. We added this nice barn here. Final little touch I'm going to do is I'm going to go to see the T tool here. This is the type tool. Okay, it's the only tool that, we're using the basic tools here that's a little bit further down in kind of the other tool sets. But go ahead and grab that T tool. And then you see there's a little T icon. You can click somewhere up here in the sky. And sometimes it creates this lorem ipsum annoying thing. It's like a placeholder, by the way, just so you know. That's a setting, I think. But anyway, you should get this flashing cursor. If you got the lorem ipsum, just hit delete until you get back to there's no characters. This is kind of like Microsoft Word. And I'm just going to say, sunset by the barn. And I don't know what color or font you're on, but you highlight it. And then up here, it's, again, just like Microsoft Word. You got a lot of different fonts. You're probably familiar with this kind of thing if you've used Word before. Here's your color. So if you wanted to do, I'd probably use something a little richer. You can even eyedrop sample. See, eyedrop sample like the dark bushes here. Give it kind of like, not quite exactly black, but near to black. And then I'm just going to, you can move it around. See that purple line? That's a little kind of a smart guide that helps you know if it's centered. And there you go. Sunset by the barn. It's taster's choice. If you want, you could put it down here and you can make it maybe a lighter color. Whatever you want to do. Looking at it now, I might even suggest taking the bird. I'm going to use the Command T, which is a shortcut for transform, and make the bird even a little smaller. Okay. It's up to you. I don't know. So this is really what we want you to do, though, is practice resizing the bird, resizing the barn, cut them out, add the text. When you're done, go ahead and file save it. Okay. And then you are done. And then you'll hand this one into me. Okay. This is where we send it through email or through WeTransfer, which is something I talk about in my classes. I actually would ask you not to send the Photoshop file when you're finally done. By the way, save is when you're just doing regular saves. Same thing as Command S. But if I wanted to make another version, I do what I did at the beginning, and I do a save as. And now I can actually make a JPEG out of it that's going to be the final JPEG. So maybe I'd even add final, just so I don't save over the original JPEG of the, and I don't know, maybe I want to change this even. I just say sunset by the barn, and then put your name, Pickering, final. Make sure I choose JPEG down here, save. Now, when this box comes up, I would just go to maximum quality, baseline optimized, and then click OK. Okay. So then you have in your folder there the final version. Let's take a look. Whoop, that was the original one. There we go. There it is. But there's a nice before and after, right? Original and with the assets added. Really add something to it, right? I put a nice little house there and a nice little bird, nice little title. So this is a nice landscape design. So this is the first practice. What I'm basically asking you to do is try to recreate this. It doesn't exactly have to look the same. If you want to move the barn around, you want to move the bird around, that's fine. Mess with the fonts. Just deliver something kind of like this so that I know that you were able to navigate the Photoshop panels and the tools and that you're able to deliver final JPEG. Okay, that's actually the, there we go. I was on the Photoshop file. Notice the extension JPG. This is the final JPEG. Okay, so you may end up with 3 items that are very similar at the end, just so you know. But it's the JPEG that I would like of the final version that you can hand in. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and hope it was helpful, and I will see you next time.